No, well, yeah.
It's
From where
a
they're really supposed to
sweater.
be.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
Yeah. I've been known.
Okay. All right. It is Tuesday, April 8th, and I'm going to call our town council business meeting to order. If you'll please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Manager Parsons, do you have comments?
Thank you, Mayor Clement. Members of council, your consent agenda this evening is rather short. You have a swapping of the treasurer and vice treasurer positions between councilpersons Gray and Peterson. You have two sets of minutes for adoption. A request to declare the badge and service weapon of Brian Edwards surplus upon his retirement. And then a resolution essentially letting our state legislators know of our dissatisfaction with Senate Bill 314 as proposed to eliminate the extraterritorial jurisdictions for all municipalities throughout the state in counties where zoning jurisdiction exists. And then item E is the 2025 audit contract. You'll recall at the last work session, you were requested to approve moving forward with contracting Malden and Jenkins as our new auditors for fiscal year 25. And this represents the contract for the first year of those services. And then finally, Resolution 1112, recognizing Library Week and our town library staff for all of the service to the community that they provide. Beyond that, you'll have a continuation of a conditional zoning district hearing from last month, and then two other public hearings relative to zoning. Happy to take any questions. Otherwise, pass it back to you, Mayor.
I had one question. On that audit, I should ask Tess, but since you're here, it had something called major, there was like 2 extra fees for an anticipated major or something. Do we think there'll be those, or is it just going to be that base?
As of right now, I think those may be the single audit fees you're referencing. The fee schedule that they put forward for us covers the first single audit fee.
Yes.
If we were to obtain some large grant or something through the fiscal year that would ultimately trigger a second or a third, those do come with an additional fee at that point.
Okay, but they're not.
But right now,
No,
there
at this
is not one scheduled. No.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Are there other questions? All right, seeing none. As we move into public comments, just a heads up to everyone in the audience. We have a nice big audience this evening. General public comment is what we go through first. It is a 3-minute time limit and is something that is not on tonight's agenda, but just a general public comment. If you are here to speak on any of our public hearings, including the Hunt Cliff Residential Development, the Meet on May Commercial Co-working Space, or the Virtuo Kids Commercial Daycare, those comments can be held until that public hearing. We did not have a sign up because we had a little bit of confusion before the meeting. So if you would like to speak, I'll just allow you guys to stand up and take turns speaking. Just make sure you introduce yourself and give an address.
And Mayor, only because I think it's part of your procedural rules now, I just noted that we left off the adoption of the agenda from
leave it off.
the agenda. So if you want to do that ahead of any first speakers.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, on to public comments. Is there anyone here with a general public comment? Okay, yes. About something on the agenda? Not on the agenda. Okay, just a general town business, something going on in your house. There is a hand raised if you'd like to come up. Good evening.
We're good?
Perfect, yes.
We're good. Name's John McInerney, 460 Crest Road, Southern Pines. There was an article, it's sort of related to the missing middle issue. There was an article in the paper a couple weeks ago, and a long article. And in part of it, it was talking about, maybe to help reduce costs. It brought up the question of like road standards. And it talked about sidewalks, street trees, street lights. And I'm just leery of, I'm not saying it would never be an appropriate thing to do, but I'm leery of saying, okay, Mr. Developer, you can scrap sidewalks, street trees, street lights, and wind up with a second-class location. And it also, if you start saying you don't need sidewalks, now, first of all, I'm not saying everywhere needs sidewalks. For example, I mean, if you all decided you wanted to put sidewalks where I live in Knollwood Heights, I suspect you'd get some opposition, even aside from cutting down trees. And seems to me it's sending a bit of a mixed message. Lord knows you all folks have been spending money on sidewalks over the past number of years. And I think in general, that's probably a good idea. Connectivity, the Knoll Road project, connectivity. So if you start saying, well, we don't need sidewalks here, I'm not saying there couldn't be a case where that's the possibility and should be what's going on, but I'd be leery of it. Right? And those things are for reducing costs. Yeah, and I think Councilman Pate alluded to this at the last meeting. I'm not putting words in his mouth, but what's to keep it from being, the cost is still going to be the same, and the developer makes a bigger profit? Nothing necessarily. That pretty much takes care of that part. More generally, I would hope long-term that if, for example, and I'm going to come up with some, what I hope are crazy numbers, if developer decides to come into town and say, I think, people want to come here. So in order for that, you need to make 10-story buildings, 12-story buildings, 15-story buildings. I would hope whatever council was in effect at that point would say, I don't think so. That's not Southern Pines. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McInerney. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. Do you all have any questions for staff on consent? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Approve the consent agenda.
All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, public hearings. We'll start with Z-07-24, the conditional zoning district for Hunt Cliff Residential Development. Director Grieve, if you'll give us a quick update on the project and anything that's happened since we continued it last month.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. BJ Grieve with the Town of Southern Pines Planning Department. You may recall that back on March 11th, 1 month ago at your last meeting, we did hold a public hearing for the Hunt Cliff project out off of Indiana. And at the end of that hearing, there was a list of concerns that was communicated by the members of council, by the members of council to staff and the applicants with the marching orders to look into it. And that list was three things I'll mention very briefly here to refresh your memory. Providing more detail regarding architecture. There was concern about the existing 6 dwellings in the Hunt Cliff development and whether or not the new buildings would be consistent with the character of the area. There was also discussion about helping to mitigate the impacts to wildlife, as well as the Hamlet Character District. I did have a follow-up conversation with Councilwoman Gray, and that was then modified into, there was also a comment from Councilman Pate about enhancing the design of vegetative buffering and providing more detail in the proposed zoning about the enhanced design, just to deal with both those issues. Because of the ability for retention of buffers and good buffers to contribute to the Hamlet character, which is briefly summarized as living in a forest. And then number 3 is to update the phasing plan with details regarding access during construction, so that construction vehicles weren't coming and going from the main existing road between the two phases. So staff did communicate to the applicants that list, and on March 28th, the applicant's technical representative, Jeremy Sparrow, did provide to staff a couple documents. Number one was an updated list of conditions, which added 4 conditions to deal with these issues. There are 3 conditions related to buffers and 1 new condition related to architecture. I'm only stealing a little bit of the applicant's thunder here by mentioning this, so I'm going to save a whole bunch for the applicants to talk about. Staff did review those conditions as well as modifications to the site plan as well as the modified phasing plan. And based on the issues that were communicated by town council, they do check all the boxes for having enhanced the design, provided more specificity about everything within the design. And therefore, the conditions also reflect, in addition to the new conditions, the conditions also reflect all the changes that occurred in the days preceding the last hearing. So they're up to date with everything. The 29 conditions that are attached to the staff report would, if you so choose, after the conclusion of the public hearing here this evening, would be the reference that you would want to make to the conditions, and those will be reflected in the ordinance. Finally, I did include in your motion the reference to putting those 29 conditions in the ordinance, so that ordinance can become part of the zoning and can be available on the GIS site. So with that, although I would love to talk about all the details, I'm going to leave that for Mr. Sparrow. And so do you have any questions for staff at this point about what has occurred between the last meeting and this meeting?
I have a couple questions. And I watched the end of the hearing on video because I was excused early last month. And I appreciate that very much. In regard to the 10-foot perimeter buffer, except to address stormwater, one of my big issues is sedimentation. It's one of the things about which I'm most concerned. And I understand that that language was going to be there, that the perimeter, I'm wondering if this was addressed at all, or if this crosses your radar, or if your expertise would allow me some explanation that might make me feel pretty good about this. What kind of protection, I'm always uncomfortable with language like except stormwater, because then someone can make an argument that we had to take that out because of stormwater. What kind of protection do you feel like we can assure people it will be in place in order to avoid an issue there?
Thank you for that question. Within the buffer, and the 3 new buffers, the type A, type B, and type C buffer of different distances with different treatments based on the location on the site plan. Tell me more about your concern about stormwater in those locations. What's your, you might say, nightmare scenario, or what's your concern with those?
Sedimentation.
Tell me more. What do you,
Just.
runoff from
There's a lot,
construction or something?
there's a fairly significant topography, as you know,
Yeah.
on that piece of land. I went out a week ago Sunday and walked it and did not fall walking down to the park, so happy to report. But there's a little informal trail down to the park right now. It's pretty steep. Just wondering if you have, I just want to make sure that folks are protected as far as making sure that we have both stormwater runoff protection, sedimentation protection, which I quite frankly don't think that the state does a very good job of taking care of, and while maintaining the perimeter buffer.
Okay. Let me address that with what I can in terms of the town processes and what will happen,
you.
sort of standard operating procedure, if you will. But I'll certainly let the applicant speak to more site specifics about their plans. With the type A, B, and C buffer, you're going to have, when it goes through site plan review, you're going to have these buffers, and we're going to make sure they're there. Some of them are going to be existing vegetation buffers, some of them are going to be enhanced with some additional planting. Now, when you begin to do the clearing internal to the site, that clearing requires an erosion control permit. An erosion control permit, that clearing can't happen until the area of disturbance is wrapped in a lovely band of silt fencing that is supposed to function to keep, once that site is cleared in the middle, when rain falls, it keeps that rain, that high energy rain, from picking up sediment and running off with it. It has temporary sediment control measures such as little temporary basins and whatnot. Now, the buffers that will be around it would therefore, theoretically, with that erosion control permit, with erosion control measures in place, the runoff from the center of the site wouldn't even get into the buffer because it would stop at the silt fence. Anything downslope would stop at the silt fence. The buffers themselves aren't really there to do much in the way of erosion control or storm water. They're just kind of there mostly as a character issue. And then after construction is done, the site will be designed with impervious surfaces, the stormwater being captured from impervious surfaces and runoff going into permanent stormwater basins or retention ponds, detention ponds, whatever mechanisms the engineers come up with as the best tools. Because depending on site circumstance, that is what gets worked out during site plan review, is what is the best way to hold and release the stormwater on this site. That's the permanent measure, and that comes after you get the temporary measures in place.
And my understanding too, from watching parts that I had physically missed, was that the existing properties are running 3.77 homes per acre, and what the new proposal was 2.7 units per acre. Am I right on that?
That's correct.
Okay, wanted to make sure that was true. Mr. Goodman also asked a question, and I don't know whether he or you can remember the answer because it was not picked up clearly on the tape. It was about the 4 units on the Phase 2 of the original Phase 2, and I'm not sure, first of all, what the question was, and secondly, what the answer was. I could not hear the answer. Do any of you recall? That was not available to me.
I think that what the question was, if I remember, was there were, in the original documents, there were 4 units in Phase 1. In this new proposal, there's 3, just a reduction of units.
So was that your point in asking that question?
I don't know what my point was, but.
Okay.
I think that was the gist of
Nor
the
do I.
conversation. Right. So.
Okay,
I
all
didn't
right.
know the answer, so I went like this. Just
It
fine.
worked great, yeah, I tested it from home.
I think overall it was a reduction of the original plan, but.
It's not my general practice, it's just a comment, my comment of the night. It's not my general practice, obviously, to watch the meetings. I'm usually here in person. But I have had people tell me how frustrating it is to not be able to see, to see us, but to not be able to see the drawings and the graphs and the lists and the wonderful information that we have on the digital board. And maybe we should think about putting some money in the budget to do that, guys, because it's, yeah, now's the time, and we have a little bit to be able to do it. I would be really interested in being able to live stream. Reagan's looking at me like, what?
So like add like a picture of.
Add a second, it may be a matter of adding a second camera, but I have had people say, I'm trying to follow it, and I can't tell what you're talking about when I can't see the maps.
Do
or-
it digitally.
Camera,
I think
if you could-
digitally
how
might be
about-
easier, and then it's a clear
Whatever,
picture.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. Obviously, anything that is in the staff report is available
Right.
through the packet on their screen. What we have not done up to this point, and one, we've had multiple conversations about how we have to sort of retrofit rooms for these meetings. We don't
Right,
have
no,
sort
I
of
understand that too.
AV, but we also have not gone to the expense of assigning staff to move cameras around the thing, because that would be one way to try to pick up a screen or something, but then you're trying to zoom in and maybe quickly zoom back to the speaker, and
Right.
we
Come
can
back to
look at
that
some
in the work session,
options.
that'd be.
I would like to just propose that as a work session. I mean, it means that we don't get to see Mr. Greaves' smiling face when he's at the board trying to point out what's going on, which is a loss, obviously, for the entire town.
You get my witty jokes, though, that the audio picks
And I
those up,
understood that
so.
you were Dr. Greaves after last.
That's true.
Last meeting, yeah.
Jessica
And-
was a doctor, too, wasn't she? Or
Yeah.
was it-
Excellent. Okay. A doctor and an attorney. Congrats, it's been a big night for you, yeah.
Yep.
So, glad I could participate from afar.
If the number of units issue or density issue comes back up, just, we can ask the
Okay,
applicant
great,
tonight
that's
as well.
fine. No, that's
Okay.
fine. I just wanted to make sure I understood what was happening. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. All right, Director Grieve, thank you. And
you.
we'll have the applicant come up and
you.
present.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Again, my name is Jeremy Sparrow. I'm with Longitude Planning Group, 10 Parker Lane, Pinehurst, representing the applicant 15 pine cones. And Ryan and Brittany are here this evening as well. So we'll kind of get kicked off. The presentation tonight is just kind of an extension of last presentation. I wasn't going to get into too much detail from last time, but we'll kind of go through the conditions that BJ had talked about, kind of relieving some of your concerns in regards to your questions and comments. So just quickly, the site plan, again, 11 total units that we're proposing. We did expand on the buffers, which we'll talk about here a little bit. And then providing the trail or walkway connection to Sandhurst Park there to the north. Diving into the architecture, I know that was one of the big concerns that we had talked about at last meeting. Upon further discussion, I think the biggest thing was, keeping the character of the existing Hunt Cliff community and making sure it still feels, living in the woods like the Hamlet Character District has called for. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel on this. So what we did is kind of looked at, we've gone out and taken pictures of individual units and kind of took out different design elements and materials and kind of want to incorporate those into the conditions that you've been provided this evening. So looking here, like I said, we've gone through breakdown of each unit. So this first section that you see here is the first duplex units, units 12 and 14. Again, this may be repetitive, but in regards to the design features, so you see a lot of low pitch roof designs on these. So their range is about a 612 to an 812 roof design. They all have horizontal siding, shutters on the front that faces their parking area, and then asphalt shingles. On unit 14 that you see here on the bottom, this one does have a dormer. It's a different design. So we would like to incorporate that on the final design as well, especially if we do that 1.5-story loft that we had previously discussed at our planning board meeting. And then all the units do have a front porch or a front stoop that do face the parking area. Going on to the next duplex unit, which you see there's 15 and 16. This is one of the newer units. This was constructed in 2019. Again, same thing, low profile roof, horizontal siding, asphalt shingles, and then front porches on all these. Unit 10 that you see there, this is one of the 2 single-family detached units. So 10 and 13 that you'll see next are the same design. So again, very similar to the duplex units, low profile roofs, horizontal siding, shutters at the front, asphalt shingles, and then the front porch stoops.
Conditions is you all are committing to matching the architecture of existing
That's correct.
homes. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so we won't be doing large steep pitches and, stone masonry or anything like that. It'll be very similar to what you see here this evening.
And I know until you get into it, you don't know exactly, you're allowed, 11 maximum units. You don't know what they're going to look like yet as far as duplex, single, standalone.
Not in detail, no.
Will there be a mix? Because, these all don't look exactly the same. If it's to happen, would you blend a variety of designs?
Yeah, we would look at doing, again, some that would be single level, some would be a story and a half. And then again, on those south units on the southern track, we're proposing walkouts. So those would be a different design as well. But again, they would all kind of have that same appearance or materials in regards to design from the parking area.
Okay. Does the council have questions on the character of proposed buildings? Okay, you can move forward if you like or proceed.
Again, this is the other unit. Again, this was very similar in design to the last unit you saw at Unit 10. So same elements and materials.
Okay.
So the conditions, like I said, that's in your packet, one of the ones that we did add was this would be subject to review with the current Hunt Cliff Association, and their architectural committee, just to make sure that it's in line with what's there. And then again, number 27, making sure that's consistent with the existing units. We would add that they would all have low pitch roofs, maximum 812 pitch, horizontal siding, asphalt shingles, a front porch, the main entry area, the dormers on the front elevation. Again, some may or may not have this dormer feature based on the overall design, and then providing shutters on that front elevation. Oh,
Question about,
yes, ma'am.
I think Mr. Pate was on it last time, and can we circle back to duplexes for a minute? You're not making a commitment now about whether or not everything would be a single-family home or whether there would be duplexes?
Correct.
And there's the limitation that buildings would be 1,500 to 2,200 square feet.
Yes, that's
So-
correct.
Is a duplex, I think I understand, a duplex is considered one building? So we're looking at 3,000 to 4,400 feet? Is that right, square feet?
Correct. So that's per unit.
Right.
Yeah.
And yet, so if a duplex is one unit, you could essentially go in with this agreement right now and do 11 duplexes, am I right?
Be 11
No.
individual units. The duplex counts as two.
Right, but that's what I just said, was, I just asked if the duplex counted as one, and you
Can you
said
just-
yes.
Yeah, can we just clarify if, is it their?
I thought you were talking about the square footage.
The question was, is one duplex a building? Yes.
Yes,
But a duplex is a two-family building.
2 units.
Two units. But it's one building. So those 2 units would be, they would count as 2 of the 11 that you are proposing?
Correct.
Correct? Okay.
Yep.
I was a little, okay, thank you.
There's a lot of confusion over that, so
Yeah,
I understand the question.
got it. Thank you.
One of the other comments, and BJ touched on this, was just kind of the character of the overall area, looking at the Hamlet Character District from the land use plan, living inside of Forest. I know Mr. Pate last time asked about the buffers. So what we've kind of done is went back, previously we had 10-foot undisturbed buffers on the entire perimeter. So what we've gone back in and done is done a breakdown of the perimeter boundaries and looked at, where can we save trees and what size of trees, and how does that fit into the overall design. So what you see in your packet tonight is kind of 3 different types of buffers. So we have a type A buffer, which is the 20-foot perimeter landscape buffer, type B buffer, which is the 10-foot undisturbed buffer, which we originally had proposed, and then a 10-foot landscape buffer on the internal boundary with the existing Hunt Cliff community, and that would be classified as our type C buffer. And go to the next slide. So a part of those conditions, what you see is kind of a more detail of what these are. So the type A buffer is going to be the perimeter buffer along the north, south, and eastern boundaries, and maintaining pine trees or other deciduous trees that are 12 inches caliper, which is your DBH or larger. In regards to the type B buffer, this would be, again, the 10-foot undisturbed buffer along the western boundary. And the reason we did that was because of the setback there and trying to getting the buildings in there is really tight. So we want to be able to maintain that as an undisturbed buffer, but supplement it. So part of that is we'll go back in and plant longleaf pines and evergreen shrubs to kind of break where there's breaks in the buffer to minimize or mitigate that visual impact from the adjoining properties. So we've come up with a planting standard of 3 pines per 100 linear feet and then 10 evergreen shrubs per 100 linear feet. And did some preliminary calculations. This may fluctuate a little bit with 11 pines and 36 shrubs along that western boundary. And then type C buffer, this would be very similar to the type B buffer, but this would not be undisturbed because we do want to be able to have the flexibility to go in, do a little bit of grading in order to capture stormwater so it doesn't go onto the adjoining properties. But again, we would go in and supplement with longleaf pines and evergreen shrubs in that section. And we got a little chart, BJ, on the next page. Oh, did it get? Go back one. One more. Oh. Sorry, it didn't come through.
I think this is an improvement from the plan
Yeah.
last month. I appreciate that change.
So you had one, it looked like, I'm just trying to decipher the different, A, B, and C. A was sort of along the road, along the park. And then B
Yeah.
and C were more where you were abutting neighboring lands?
Probably read that one better, the site plan.
Yeah, I had an exhibit, but I don't know why it didn't come through. Yeah, so this section here would all be type A buffer.
Jeremy, will you use the mic, please? Thank you.
Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the northern track, this whole section is going to be a type A buffer. So that'll be the 20-foot perimeter buffer, where we'll save the 12-inch or higher caliper trees. And then all along Indiana Avenue, all the way down to the intersection here would be a 20-foot buffer as well at Canterbury. So it kind of wraps Canterbury as well. And down this adjoining property as well. And then the 10-foot undisturbed buffer, the type B buffer, is going to be along this western edge that we had discussed. And then we'll supplement that as well.
Mr. Sperry, would you mind doing the same thing on that screen so that the audience can see you?
Yeah, so this entire northern tract along the perimeter would be the type A 20-foot buffer. And then along Indiana as well. As you come down Indiana and down to Canterbury and back would all be a 20-foot perimeter buffer. And then again, the western edge here would be the type B 10-foot undisturbed buffer, and then the internal portion that you see here next to unit 10 and 12 would be the 10-foot supplemented buffer.
So I have a follow-up question in regard to that. I know that, and I applaud the fact that you've met with and reached some consensus with the HOA, the current HOA. Have the people who live on Canterbury who have a vested interest and a bit of a property interest there, have they been included in those negotiations? I would assume they had. Have they?
I know Ryan and Brittany have had conversations with them last week, and they're going to speak to that this evening.
I'd be very interested to hear whether or not Canterbury's been represented in the chats. That'd be great. Thank you.
And what was your criteria for choosing what was A, B, or C? Was there a rhyme or reason to which one you used where?
Had to do, because we haven't done like detailed engineering design, we're trying to maintain areas that, based on the topography, that we're trying to minimize the impacts, especially visual impacts from Indiana and the adjoining properties. There wasn't any specific criteria, it's just our professional input in regards to design.
Thank you. Do you have questions on the buffering? What was the third condition? Or is that the second one? Just making sure we go through all of them.
So the last one is just the phasing plan. I don't know if you want to go to the. Yeah, right there. So in the phasing plan, this was kind of the last condition. We've added, we've gone out and looked at the topography on that northern side in order to get construction access, because I think that was the big question from the last meeting, is how we are going to access phase one. So we're not going to use the existing entry roads at all. We will have to cross them, but those would be repaired upon final construction. But we would do phase one coming from the northern track and then finish out phase two and then finalize the road construction at the end.
Okay. Okay.
Has that access already been run through DOT as far as location, Jeremy?
We have not done final approval with DOT for that, for the construction road.
And I think that it is your quote, that you had a lot of emphasis in the parts that I watched online about tree save, and you've addressed that. You say you've marked the pine trees that are 12 inches or more, is that correct?
We have not yet. That'll be part of the final survey. Once we get into the final design, all those will be tagged and marked in the field.
And what sort of assurance have you been able to give folks in the current HOA, the current Hunt Cliff residents, that you will honor? I mean, I appreciate very much your intent and your statement that it's your intent to save trees. Tell me about how you're going to go about that and what specifically you would do, and if you accidentally knocked over all the trees, what would happen then?
I mean, we would definitely put up tree protection for those trees that are going to be saved. So prior
By
to
that you
construction.
mean- By that you mean what? For tree protection? Describe it for me.
They use like a yellow netting that would be put around every tree beyond the drip line. That way those trees are ensured not to be disrupted during construction.
Okay, and what's the circumference of how far out are they from the actual base of the tree?
It just depends on the tree canopy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you all have other questions for the applicant? I mean, I think we'll have public comments, and then we'll have additional time for questions.
Yeah, I want to hear from folks on Canterbury eventually if they want to be heard about whether or not, whether.
While you're up here, I do have one question. It may come back after we hear comments. I remember that we were told that there would be a good bit of dialogue back and forth. One thing was in relation to this architectural committee and the semantics of approving or not approving your architecture. How did that go? What was the
So
resolution?
Ryan Pascal's here this evening and can comment on that.
Great.
Go ahead. If you'll go ahead and come up, that'd be great.
You all met Craig Pfeiffer last month, and he's my attorney. And we met with Clark Campbell, and Clark drafted this letter. And it was supposed to be to you all today, but I have a copy for each of you. Let me give you one.
Do you have enough to give one to Beth for the record? I think so. Because if you don't, I can share with Brandon. Thank you.
The purpose of our meeting was to come to a consensus between the HOA and ourselves. And we had a nice meeting. Shannon Smith was there as the representative, the president of the HOA, and two of the other homeowners were there with her. And the largest thing that we wanted to do was come to terms on the architectural standards and architectural approvals for what we'd do in the future. And I feel like we are really in a good spot in terms of working things out. If you'd like me to read the letter so that everyone can know what it says in the crowd, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
And again, this is coming from Clark Campbell. As you know, Mr. Pfeiffer represents 15 Pine Cones LLC. I represent the Hunt Cliff Homeowners Association. Mr. Pfeiffer is CC'd herein and has approved the substance of this email. Mr. Pfeiffer and I met with our respective clients last Friday and discussed multiple issues, including the architecture of the homes that 15 Pine Cones intends to build on its property. To confirm, as I believe it was discussed at the last town council meeting, the property 15 Pine Cones owns is subject to the declaration of covenants for Hunt Cliff HOA and Hunt Cliff HOA. Under the declaration, through its board, has architectural approval power for anything constructed in the community. It is my understanding that the town council would like to have the HOA and 15 Pine Cones come to some accord with regard to the architecture for said homes. It is also my understanding that the town council would like to see the architecture of what 15 Pine Cones intends to build. I believe that you will see pictures either before or at the meeting tonight. 15 Pine Cones has agreed to build to the architecture and color palette of what currently exists in Hunt Cliff. And by the declaration, they are limited to 2 stories, but has indicated that it doesn't intend to exceed 1.5 stories for any new construction on its property. Hunt Cliff HOA has agreed that if the plans submitted are in harmony with what exists, they will not unreasonably withhold approval. In addition, the parties have agreed that the best result will be 2 HOAs, i.e., the existing HOA will ultimately release 15 Pine Cones LLC from its obligations under its declaration, and 15 Pine Cones LLC will create its own HOA for its endeavor. Between the parties, there are other issues to discuss, and there's ultimately the task of reducing all this to writing and ultimately recording what needs to be recorded. But in the end, I do not think that the discussions between the parties should be a reason to delay the rezoning process. Specifically, to answer your question about Canterbury, we have not been in touch with the folks from Canterbury.
And why was that?
We were specifically tasked with speaking with HOA of Hunt Cliff and coming to a consensus with them, and so that's what we did.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am?
All right, if you would like to sit down, what we'll do is we'll move into public comment.
Okay.
So any comments on this specific public hearing? You are not limited to any time, but since we did have public comment last month as well, if you've already spoken, just provide us additional information or a very brief review of what you'd like to make sure we address. And in the interest of everyone's time, if someone has stood up before and already said exactly what you want to say, you're welcome to come to the microphone and just say that you agree with them. It's totally okay. I will just allow you all to speak, like organize yourself. So whoever would like to speak first. And absolutely, yes. And then when you come to the microphone as well, just reintroduce yourself and your address. Thank you so much. Let me get you one more. I'm sorry, I licked it. Oh, it might be two. Everything's sticking together. Yeah, but I'll give mine to Beth, or we'll pass it down. Okay.
Hi, I am Plotty Meadows. I live at 106 Canterbury Road.
Okay.
The reason I'm speaking tonight is I attended a meeting with fellow neighbors last night who are impacted by this. Very upset, a lot of concern. So I tried to put together a picture so you can look at it. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, that is as the current zoning. So you can see that it's RS2, RS3, rural estates with a, excuse me, very low density to low density. And then in the middle of it, you've got kind of this abomination, which is basically RS1 CD. So you have an island that's surrounded by low density housing. And so the big question is, why do you want to rezone that to basically ruin that effect, if you will? You're going to go from low density to at least a medium density, put a bunch of duplexes in there. Why do you want to do that? I apologize, I was an Army guy, so whenever I gave a plan to my boss, we did the feasible, acceptable, and suitable. So if you look at my chart, feasible means, can you execute it? Do you have the resources and can you do it? So the Planning Commission says, yep, we can do it, it's feasible. Now there's 29 considerations or conditions. If I was to tell my boss, I got a great plan, all we got to do is knock out 29 things to get it done, that ain't feasible. From an acceptable, does a plan balance risk and advantage? Well, so I think, as I understand, all of my fellow citizens who are impacted by this have a lot of risk concerns. Safety, the possibility that the project may not be incompleted. Is there a bond to ensure it'll be done? Power lines, offset, traffics, dumpsters, a lot of concern. And I heard all of that last night. From a suitable, does the plan accomplish your zoning intent? Well, if the adjacent zoning ranges from very low to low in the applicant's final plan, and again, I think the other thing is all of those citizens have not had the benefit to look at the plan, so the plan's been in flex. Now they brief a plan, so it's hard for them to assess that. But you could end up with 7 per acre instead of 2.1. So that's not low density. So I guess to close, kind of respectfully request that the board consider these points in your zoning decision. First, maintain consistent density requirements of approximately no more than 2.1 single-family dwellings per acre. That's not what this is now. Duplexes, and you brought this up, ma'am, I think those should count as 2 single-family dwellings, not 1. So that's going to put 22 single-family dwellings in there.
That's what we were trying to clear up.
That
It's
was-
a maximum of 11, yeah.
That was my misunderstanding too, and you're right, they should and they do.
So that blows your density right out of the water.
Back toward acceptable.
It doesn't blow the density right out of the water because it's 11 units, family units total, not 22 duplexes.
So there's 11 families,
11, well, it
or
would be
there's
11
22
buildings.
families?
No,
11 units. That's it.
11 units.
Okay, so a
unit?
duplex counts as
It's
2 units?
Correct.
Okay.
I shared your confusion on that, I totally understand. So and that's what I was,
And the plan has been evolving. So I think the final thing, and I may be wrong on this, would be that you consider some restrictions, like number 1, no dumpsters. I know at one time I heard they were going to put a dumpster at the entrance of Sandhurst. Hey, come see me, there's a dumpster that, turn at the dumpster to go to my house. Dumpsters to me are apartments, commercial, not residential, single-family housing. Retaining ponds, I would recommend they not be adjacent to anybody's properties. Are they going to put fences around them? Are they going to protect them so kids don't drown in a retaining pond? And then finally, since it's now going to break from the Hunt Cliff HOA, I think you should require a subdivision plan before you approve anything.
Thank you.
is it you? Well, I shouldn't ask any, I'm sorry, I shouldn't ask you questions.
I think if you want to,
Ask me questions,
yeah, I
but
think you could ask him if you want to clarify something.
it's Plaudy, Plaudy Meadows.
Plotty is your first name?
Yes,
And your
ma'am.
last name, I'm sorry, is?
Meadows.
And on Canterbury, is it your assertion that you all are held to 2.1 single-family dwellings per acre on Canterbury?
Yes, ma'am. And one of Lot 17, next to Andrea's house, is originally a Sandhurst lot. And I believe for tax purposes, when somebody bought these 2 lots, whoever the planner is just drew a big circle around 2 lots and made them 1 for tax purposes. But there is an original Sandhurst lot, which is the one, I think it's 17.
Yeah, I think that we talked about that last month, that there's only 1 unit going on that piece of property for that reason.
And that property, I'm sorry, is,
It's
what's
the one
it?
that fronts Canterbury.
But it's the one that fronts, is right on Canterbury, or next
This
to.
one, right here.
And that lot, what's the acreage of that? It's a whopper, right?
We can ask the applicant, that would make more sense.
Yeah, so that kind of shoots down the 4+ acres. There's really not 4 acres in there.
I understand, right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meadows.
Director Griever, planning, could you, it confused me reading it in the report. There was all this stuff about, if they keep it single-family or kind of minimize it, they don't have to do the subdivision process. It was just asked and alluded to. Can you explain that again in simple terms?
Absolutely. In early conversations with the applicant, the nature of what kind of housing are we reviewing here, that question came up. The question of footprint of the structure, will land be conveyed? The answer so far has been no. If it is in the future, they understand they will need to go through a major subdivision preliminary plat because that's required. The other arrangements that are possible, the other main arrangement that's possible is that the structures would be, a declaration of unit ownership would be filed, and the buyer of something would be buying a unit within the structure, essentially a condo. And that's also a common arrangement. Selling the footprint is also a common arrangement. You can see currently in Hunt Cliff, it's the footprints that are conveyed. And here's an example of one. Here's another one. So there was a subdivision plat. There was a final plat after construction. The applicants are aware and have acknowledged, we have it in the file, that they know that at some point if they want to convey a footprint, they will need to go through that platting process.
Thank you.
Ma'am, you can come forward.
Director Greaves, one more question. Can you give me like the Cliff Note version of the difference between RS1 CD and RS2 CD?
I cannot give you a Cliff Note version of the difference between RS1 CD and RS2 CD, because if they were CDs, they would be conditional districts that would be unique. So every RS1 CD, every RS2 CD is unique. I can tell you the difference between RS1 and RS2.
So let me just back up 1 second. Then this property is currently zoned RS1 CD.
Yep. Because of the original approval from 2000.
And so RS2 CD is just a follow-on to the original rezoning with its own set of conditions and circumstances based on these hearings now.
Yes.
Can you go ahead and tell me, under the current RS1 CD zoning, how many units are approved? I know we talked about this last month. I just want to make sure that we have the number in front of us.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Under the current RS1 CD, current zoning, how many units are approved by right?
I can go back and look in the packet real quick.
Okay, if you'll look
the
at that while
original.
she
Yeah.
speaks, that'd be great. Thank you.
One more than what they have now, but that's just a guess.
I realized I didn't have it in my notes. Sorry about that.
I'm Jan Liverman, and I'm a current resident at Hunt Cliff in Unit 12. And I just wanted to point out that the letter that Mr. Pascal read, ask you to please disregard it. That is an unrevised letter. Apparently, he got a copy too early, and there is a different edition that we will, our attorney sent it to his attorney. I don't know if his attorney got the wrong one to him or not, but that letter is not valid.
Are you able to, off the top of your head, tell us what differs about the conditions and the edit?
Not at the moment, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Yikes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'll be really quick since I spoke last month. But one thing that
Just introduce yourself real fast, sorry.
Meredith Mucci, 103 Canterbury Road. And actually, one of the things that kind of, after I spoke, I sat around and listened to the rest of the proceedings, and I was really surprised and concerned about the misinformation that was presented regarding the rezoning. One of the most critical things was on the density, which Plowdy actually just touched on a little bit, but that first lot that is consistently being referred to as, it's parcel ID, I guess it's the first zoning. It's being referred to as being 3 acres. However, more than 1 acre of that land is restricted and cannot be used for the type of development that he is proposing. It is a Sandhurst lot. It does have deed restrictions on it. It cannot be used the way that they want to do it. And I think they've done such a great job. It's so nice to see that they've put together a plan, and it looks nice, and it seems like things are definitely moving forward, which is awesome, but half of those houses can't go there. Those 1, 2, and 3, I would say, units can't be on that lot. Those are all on a Sandhurst lot. And while he said he would just put one house on that lot, one of the deed restrictions is it can't be a condo. So that lot, I would have to have a single-family home. There's a bunch of other things which I won't go into, but I don't know if they don't realize that or just didn't take it into consideration. And I know that may be a civil matter, as he's mentioned, but really, I think that accurate information is important. So the usable land amount is approximately 1.8 acres. And placing 8 units on the space results in a density of approximately 4.44 units per acre. So Dabbs Brothers Construction thoroughly researched the deed restrictions and the neighborhood requirements when considering this property. And although they were successful in having the lot rezoned from RS2 to RS1, they ultimately chose not to move forward with the purchase, recognizing that the restrictions would prevent them from pursuing their intended purposes. While I understand that, again, these do probably fall into civil issues, as BJ has pointed out, I do believe that the town council should not make decisions that may set a troubling precedent for future development, particularly when such decisions are based on inaccurate and/or incomplete information. Also, as I previously stated, this rezoning request does not align with the Southern Pines 2040 Comprehensive Plan. In fact, I believe this area exemplifies the very community character the plan was designed to protect and preserve. Hunt Cliff is a distinctly different area from the surrounding areas. It was something that kind of popped up randomly, and the 2040 plan was designed to have a comprehensive plan for these things. All the surrounding areas are large single-family homes, as Cloudy had mentioned. Anyway, I'll carry on. Ultimately, the decision is more than a single-family property or a single property. It's about the integrity of the planning process, the protection of established neighborhoods, and the precedent you set for future development. Approving a rezoning request based on inaccurate information not only undermines the public trust, but invites further attempts to circumvent through a thoughtful framework laid out in the 2040 comprehensive plan. And I just urge you to stand by the principles that guide the responsible growth in Southern Pines. Thank you.
Before you leave.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Ann. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, what is the basis of your assertion that there's a covenant that runs with the land?
I have the deed restrictions, I have all of that.
Can you provide that to us?
To that,
I can send you.
All of it.
do you know?
What planning staff says to that is what we always say on that matter, which is private conditions, covenants, and restrictions are an agreement between the seller of a property and the buyer of a property. If they exist and they restrict something from taking place, we don't research that and do title history and things like that as far as zoning. If that is a thing, then that is a civil matter between two private parties that are beholden to that agreement.
Okay, so that would not have been something that you would have typically researched in your,
So we
Proposal.
yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. When we become aware of those things, we certainly look at it, we read it, we are aware that we're not making a determination on this. Ultimately, only a judge may be able to make a determination on those types of disputes. We encounter these things with property line disputes. Somebody's going to do a development and they think property line's over here. The neighbors think, 3 years ago there was a neighbor property line over here. And those types of disputes are similar. And we say, listen, here's what the records we have. We require the applicant to bear the burden of proof on the fact that they own the property, they have a right to apply, and then we go through the application process and we hit zoning standards. But yeah, many civil matters can wind up getting dealt with before, during, and after.
so it's conceivable that there is a covenant that runs with the land that the town would not have identified, and I'd love to eventually hear from the applicant again
If it was a
regarding that.
disputed easement or a disputed boundary line or a
Right.
disputed private CC&R, we wouldn't take a position on that and say, you're right, you're wrong, therefore you can apply. You're right, you're wrong, therefore you cannot apply. We would say, well, y'all got yourself a dispute there. And,
Right,
but
okay,
other than that,
got
you
it.
can move forward with applying for a rezoning as long as you meet the town's zoning standards for both the process and design.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess my question, not concern so much. We've heard from Mr. Meadows, and I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Meredith, sorry.
Meredith?
Yes.
Okay. Were you guys at the HOA meeting then?
I'm not part of the HOA, no, I'm on Canterbury Road.
Okay.
I just live down the street and I am in real estate and I looked up the deed restrictions and I looked up the deed and I just know that and I mentioned it at last meeting, but I really did look into it and look at the actual acreage that is that lot and what the deed restrictions are. And I had them last time, actually. I just didn't give them to you because I got nervous, but I should have brought them with me again today. But yeah, so they're deed restrictions, and that's fine. I do understand it's completely a civil matter, but even if you did approve the rezoning, then we would just, I guess, have to go to the courts and get them to not allow it or something. I don't know. But yeah, they can't put dumpsters on that property either, I don't think, so.
So it's my question for Attorney McCarley or Director Grieve. I guess, are we supposed to, in essence, not the judge for that determination? So I guess we just almost ignore that. But then if truly, in fact, can't minimize it, can't put a dumpster, they will run into that challenge privately between the two of them. But we just don't factor in being a filter for that information?
That's correct. You have enough on your plate just to handle the land use and the zoning. We can't become a court for private property disputes over covenants, property lines, and all those other things.
Oh, absolutely not. But isn't it important when you're talking about density restrictions, if they can't build on it, then that would really affect the density?
If that's a covenant, then that's the private matter.
But then they're giving misinformation.
It's not misinformation. There are two sets of rules, and the most restrictive will apply, but we don't enforce the private covenants.
So Attorney McCarley, I have a question on assuming that it went forward and we approved the plan, and what we have is a dumpster and a condo on land that cannot be either of those things there, will they have to come back to us or staff? Once they go through the civil matter and get it settled, I just don't want to have to re-see the whole thing again when it
Gee,
changes.
why not?
Right?
We're so fun.
Yes, you are fun. How I'm just trying to figure out what we're agreeing to and to make sure that we're agreeing to something that they can then figure out moving forward.
The difficulty here is that none of us on the city side, the town side, know the validity of any of that. And it's not our job to determine that. It is more of a job than the town council is going to want to take on.
I get that. They're going to have to put a dumpster somewhere. When that happens and they can't put it there, do they have to come back to us or do they handle that with staff? I'm trying to figure out if we're approving
If it's
something.
allowed by the zoning, by the CZ,
Okay,
then it's not a violation of the zoning. If the dumpster is a violation of a covenant, that goes somewhere else. That goes to court, not to town council.
well, there's going to be a dumpster somewhere and at some point they're going to have to put it on land that's allowed, which means they're going to have to get our approval for that, correct?
Just for clarification, just to make sure I understand and that we're all talking about the same thing, the dumpster and the condominium CCRs you're talking about are only on that lot that represents a former Sandhurst lot.
Yeah, it's-
So
you can see the
either
line.
3 or 4 acres, again, depending
Yeah.
on, either 3 or 4 acres of the
It's,
entire tract. So a dumpster located off of what was the previous Sandhurst lot would be subject to site plan review and
Okay.
screening and
All
all
right,
that.
so there's a
but-
process.
3 acres, there's 1.8 acres that is usable.
Thank you.
Okay, just so that it will.
What she is speaking of is land that is, it's been referred to in this hearing as most adjacent to Canterbury Road.
Yeah, it's Unit 8 on the map.
Yeah, so the restrictions that are being discussed, I've not heard anyone say exist throughout the rest of the Hunt Cliff development. It's only that parcel that got wrapped into the Hunt Cliff development as part of the last rezoning.
Correct, and it can't have a condo, and it can't have
Right.
a lot of things. However, also too, I can't really see on the setbacks they were talking about, the whole line of Indiana, there's all these power lines. So they're talking about all this stuff they're going to be planting. It's all got a 30-foot easement from the power company. So I don't know if that's after the power line easement or not. Maybe I just can't say. But are they going to, because you can't plant all this stuff in the power line easement.
Was there planning in buffer A, Jeremy? I think the planning was in B and C.
Preservation buffer with 12-inch caliber.
So you're saving the grass that's underneath the power lines?
We're not disturbing that area.
Okay, so the grass under the power lines is staying. Gotcha. Cool.
So the lot to which you refer,
Yes.
that you assert has a covenant that runs with the land, what is the acreage of that lot?
Was, oh my gosh, sorry.
BJ, do you have access, I think we saw it at last month's hearing, but to the map that shows the parcel? That's being-
Well-
That's what I think it is.
Yeah, this dashed line is the line that shows the approximate boundary of the parcel to which she's referring that's in Sandhurst, and this is the one unit that's on that parcel.
Right, and the acreage of that parcel equals,
At acres, I can't tell from the site.
1.06-ish, I believe,
it's
from
a
memory.
little bit more than 1 acre.
I also want to be careful that we're not getting into something legal matter that we should not be getting into. I mean, am I wrong?
Correct. You don't need to try and resolve the private property issues.
Right, and I'm fine with that, but I think if that land does have a covenant that runs with it, and if it's been included in an equation that determines the density of what can be built on the lot, the entire plat, that's something that it's a little bit what comes first, the chicken or the egg, and I understand that's a civil matter.
So
but
what's
if
the rush? Why
that-
don't we get that settled and then they can come back and get it
That
done?
property has been included in the equation of density considerations in general. Does that not become? Could I speak? I'd love to hear from you.
Wasn't this entire, this one right here, this included the area in question that is in the Sandhurst?
Yeah, this is the 1963 plat that shows the lot that's being referred to here, lot number 17 in Sandhurst, and then this is the balance of the property right here. So the property right now is this the property that's coming in for review is kind of all this right here. But this is the
I
one
mean, the
lot.
original Hunt Cliff.
Yeah, it was part of it as well.
This isn't a Hunt Cliff though, right?
Oh, excuse me, the original Hunt Cliff. I think I've got that in here too. Yeah, here's the original Hunt Cliff.
Right here. So
Yeah.
what year was this?
Yeah, this is the 6 units that were built. This is from, I'm trying to find here, we've got 1980. This is, revision date is 1980, so it's in that ballpark of time.
20 units to begin with.
Okay. So there were 20 units? Okay.
Like they kind of solved that same issue with this one.
I would just like to speak about the dumpster because, of course, everyone hates a dumpster. I mean, I hate a dumpster. The only reason that we have a dumpster built into this plan is because the UDO requires it. So I'd like the council to recognize that fact. I mean, I wish there wasn't a dumpster. The people in Hunt Cliff don't want a dumpster. The people in Sandhurst don't want a dumpster, but the UDO is requiring us to put a dumpster. And like Reagan pointed out, if our 2 parcels add up to 5 acres and we subtract off this 1 acre Sandhurst lot, we have 4 acres to choose from where this dumpster that we're required to put goes. And then another fact that I'd like to bring up is we're talking about the density of different parts of the area.
Correct.
But isn't it very, very commonly a design that there's tight density in one spot of a development and there's not in other places? This is every development ever. I don't really understand why it matters that there's 1 house on 1 acre surrounded by open space and common space for the development. And how is that different from every development?
It was a platted subdivision, and so they would be owning the land there too, and you're not going to be.
I'm actually going to ask you to sit down because we can't, it's all right, we just don't have debates on the
Yeah.
public floor.
And in terms of the condominium aspect, we would like to eventually do the subdivision plat to make it so these can be sold with the footprint of the land. This was something that we would come back to you later. BJ can tell you about our conversation about this. I didn't quite understand the condominium aspect when we first put in the application, but we would want to sell the ground with the footprint of the house.
Okay.
And that'll have to go through major subdivision preliminary plat, and it could have gone through concurrently, but we'd had a number of discussions about whether or not they wanted to subdivide, and that was just, yeah.
So like townhome ownership versus a lot. Like you own the footprint, but not.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Very common, and again, it just requires going through that major subdivision preliminary plat process.
Okay.
One more thing, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Just get to the microphone before you speak.
I received the email from my attorney, who received it from their attorney. I'm not trying to
your
present
fault.
misinformation.
It's fine.
I was presented this information from Clark Campbell on their behalf. I don't know what to say about that.
Let's
Thank you
move
for
along
giving
with,
that clarity.
let's move along with public comment because otherwise we will be here all evening.
For what
which
it's
we
worth
probably are
as
gonna be
well,
anyway.
staff did receive that same email from Clark Campbell, the HOA's attorney, at 4:20 PM today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for actually a lot for clarifying that.
Staff received the one that we've been given, or staff received a revised one at 4?
Staff received an email that reads the same as the letter you were given.
Okay.
I received this email at 4:20 today.
Right, but you've not received a follow-up? Thank you, okay.
Okay, moving along with public comment. What I would like to do is anyone else who would like to come and speak, up here, we will take notes and then we'll address those at one time with the applicant and with staff. That way we can get through this in a reasonable amount of time. Okay.
About something different?
Nope, we're still talking about just this issue. Yep. But if anybody else would like to speak on Hunt Cliff, now is the time. Do you mean Hunt Cliff?
No, I don't mean
Okay, then no. We'll cut to you.
Just clarify, I'm Jody McCain, number 16 at Hunt Cliff. We spoke with Clark at 3:08 PM and changed that email, so I'm not sure why it went as it did, but that was not what we agreed. So I'm sorry if that was misspoke, but I have it right here, the call, that we withdrew parts of that. I guess I would also say I wish I could have been here last time to present, and I don't know if it's even important anymore, but the drainage issue, I appreciate it. I did hear what you talked about at the beginning. The drainage is not, because I'm in the last, I'm number 16, which is the last, which is where all the water clears to. And I've had an issue going back to 2022, and I sent a video of what the drainage does to my property. And it's not just water coming down on the soil area. It's, for me, it's coming down the roads. Because it's, you know, I can show you this video if you'd like. I don't have anything big, but it comes right down, and
ma'am,
it's a stream right into my front yard, and I'm taking the video from my front
Who did you
yard.
send the video to?
I'm sorry, I sent it to Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah, they requested that, or my lawyer requested that I send it to him, which I did. But it just comes down the roads, and now they're going to put another road, and it just comes down the road and comes right to my, even though there's a drainage on the side, I know you walked the property, there's a drainage there, the water just totally goes right past it, right into my front yard. And we have had to correct that with a berm, I think it's called, which has helped, but I still have to go out and clear that berm because all of the pine straw lands there. And now we're talking about a whole nother property or set of properties that it's going to come down into. So that's one concern. My other concern is, I noticed that they have a way to get to the park, and you had seen that we have a trampled way to get to the park, which we do use. People who have had families do use, and I love the park. I used to walk my dogs there. My concern is I don't want it to be so visible that it invites people from the park to come onto our private property, because I've walked down and seen drug deals that they're going in that area there, and I don't want, it's fine for us coming from private property to go into the park. I think that's wonderful. I'm so grateful that parks are there. But to create it so, and I don't know how he's going to do that. And so we did talk about that in the HOA meeting, and he asked that I bring it up here to see if it's a requirement that it become like I don't know, a sidewalk or something that's so obvious. We want to keep that. We want, you know, if his people are there, we want them to be able to get to the park, but not to create something that's so obvious that it invites everybody from the park onto our private, you know, our private property. Our roads are private. They're owned by us, the HOA. And I'm happy to show anybody the video if that would be helpful, but you probably don't need it.
It sounds like if your roads are owned by the HOA needs to handle the drainage issues.
Well, that raises other issues. That was one of the reasons that we moved what we put in that letter.
Okay, thank you.
Very agreed. Yep. They make an reference to drainage, stormwater in their condition 13. Does that in any way, I know we have pretty strict stormwater for construction and projects through everything that y'all do that we don't see, which I appreciate. Does any part of this, because it's a conditional district, lessen the standards with which they're going to have to address stormwater through construction and after construction? That's part of our already in our code.
Nothing about the conditional zoning district lessens the standards they'll have to meet for erosion control and stormwater management.
Okay. I just want to make sure in some way, because it's a CD, were to move forward, it was doing that. So thank you for clarifying.
All right. Additional public comment?
My name's Andrea Petticelli. I live at 102 Canterbury Road. I wrote this whole big thing, but everything I have here was already mentioned.
Okay, if you would like to
Traffic,
just update, just give a revised version so that we.
traffic, how what they're trying to build doesn't really fit in with Sandhurst. I know it's part of Hunt Cliff, but a big part of it is also part of Sandhurst. And a lot of the homes on Sandhurst are on 1 acre lots. The house across the street, as the applicant and his wife know, sits on 14.7 acres and is under contract for $1.4 million. And a lot of homes around there are just there's single family homes on bigger lots. I'm worried about the wildlife, the red cockade woodpecker as well, which there's a massive colony less than a mile away. That worries me about cutting down all these trees. And that's basically it. I don't want to bore you guys with all the same stuff, but
It wouldn't bore us.
It's a lot. I don't want to be repetitive, but that's basically it. Everything everyone has said, I totally agree with. That's
And your
basically
property is
it.
actually visible on this map.
Oh, yeah, it's right next door, and again, I mean, Meredith and I went over the covenants and restrictions, which blows my mind that, I mean, that a town can make decisions on zoning changes, which basically could have us all just end up in court down the road. Like, I don't know, it just,
It's an unfortunate circumstance.
yeah, it's crazy. I just, and again, the traffic on our street, which is a pretty quiet residential street, between the hours of 4 and 6, I think we have video, and it shows like 100 cars literally flying down our street. So adding 11 units right next door just makes that a lot worse than it already is.
So when you say our street, are you talking about Canterbury?
Yeah, so right now, the road, it backs up around certain hours from Fort Bragg. The traffic
So it's
backs
Fort
up.
Bragg cuts to Indiana? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, so Fort Bragg, like Indiana, where they meet, the road, it backs up on Indiana past Canterbury to the entrance of Hunt Cliff. So people have now taken to literally flying down our street between, I don't know where they're going, between Indiana and trying to get to Fort Bragg on the other
They
side.
take the hypotenuse.
Yeah.
And you are that, okay?
That's, yeah, it's
There you go.
great. Trying to walk the dogs is super fun. But that's it. I just don't think I get it. It looks great on paper, but what they're trying to build is just a lot for a small neighborhood.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak?
Hey guys, I'm Brittany Pascal. I know Meredith and Andrea from real estate as well. Andrea just mentioned the property across the street. I just closed on it today, and the new owners are fully aware of our plan and are on board with it as well. So just wanted to mention that they are aware of it. As far as Hunt Cliff traffic impacting Canterbury, we have no control over who drives down Canterbury. The Hunt Cliff residents would not be using Canterbury to access their property, obviously. And to speak on the trail item, I just chatted with Ryan and Jeremy about this. In order to keep it more, I guess, disguised, I don't want to say disguised, but like less obvious, and to keep unwanted traffic coming from the park through the development, we'd be happy to, at our expense, put a small sign up that said private property use for residents only, or something like that, that everybody would be, aware of and not be trampling through there wondering what's there.
I think that would make sense.
Yeah, so, anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, anyone else from the public? Okay. Ms. Petticelli, do you want to say something else? Okay.
I know Brittany just brought up the traffic, like we can't.
Okay, so we're getting back to like the debating on the floor. I really don't know that it's a good idea. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Council, do you all have questions for the applicant or staff? Or both? Or where would you like to start? You do? I do not. I have no questions. Ms. Peterson? Okay. Ms. Gray?
I don't have a question, I guess, comment. We had a lot of concerns the first time this was mentioned, and I guess we thought everything was being resolved. I know that the aspect of the deed and all of that came up, and we're like, what? And apparently it still seems to be an issue, but thank you for the clarity, Attorney McCauley, in terms of knowing that we cannot get into the legal aspects of it all. I hope it gets resolved, but I do think that the applicants made some effort in making sure that everything was addressed from the last time, so.
Mr. Pate?
It would be better if there was sort of more understanding of what was going on, but it's not our place. And so we'll do what we're tasked with today. And if we see this again as a subdivision request, if we see it again after some resolutions in private civil matters, then we'll address those at that time.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Something else come up? No, go ahead.
I do want to say, this is an Ann Peterson problem. that I have a real problem with, again, this is a protection of our planning department. I have a tremendous problem with anything that comes into the planning department at 4:24 PM on the afternoon before a 6 o'clock meeting with the expectation that they're going to be able to digest that and bring it to us. And then if indeed that is not even what was supposed to be sent, I have an even bigger problem. So I don't like sloppy. I want it done in time. I want it done ahead of time. I want everybody to know the rules. I have a huge concern about the fact that, well, first of all, I commend you all on meeting with each other and talking about what would be resolved, how it could be resolved, and figuring out a way to get along. I have a huge concern on the fact that Canterbury was left out of the loop. And this is an extraordinarily unique piece of property that's actually two pieces of property that we're ramming together with a sweet Hunt Cliff in the middle of it. So it just feels like there's a lot that's not resolved, and there's a lot of sloppiness, and that's really bothersome. And for the most part, for me, the biggest bother, because of my position and my complete admiration for our planning department, is that to send them something at 4:24 in the afternoon before a 6 o'clock meeting and expect them to digest it and expect us to digest it is unacceptable.
Director Greaves, adjacent property owners on Canterbury were notified through the public process, correct?
Yes. Of the planning board hearing and the original town council hearing. There was no additional notice that went out of this continuation because it was the March 11th meeting that was noticed.
And this is a letter that we received from the HOA's attorney. This was from the HOA's attorney, not the applicant's attorney.
The email that I received at 4:20 was from Clark Campbell, who my understanding is representing the HOA.
Thanks.
Email was Clark Campbell, and the body of the email stated that he'd been working with Craig Pfeiffer, thank you. Excuse me.
Just come to the microphone.
I'll ask you to come up. Here's my question. This is a legislative hearing, so we do have some leniency. What do you think was supposed to be different about that letter?
And just into the
What was the
microphone.
change?
I have it with me. Clark, of course, has everything, and after we spoke, he drafted it. But I think the reason that it came late was when when we spoke with Clark, we made the revisions. He was going to put it on paper, but he had to send it to Craig Pfeiffer. And Craig Pfeiffer may have been the holdup for the 420. You said, because Craig would have sent it back to Clark, and then Clark would have sent it to you.
If we could have even
I just wanted to explain the delay.
This is
I think
all
it went
within-
a couple of places.
Yeah, all within 2 hours today, at the very end of the business day, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
No, I mean, you may not be able to just name everything exactly, but just overview
There were
what's
three
different.
people involved in the discussion, and I don't know which parts of it Clark picked up to put into the revision.
Unfortunately, his letter did not arrive in our office or to the applicant's office.
The gist of this letter is they're going to construct buildings that look similar to the existing architecture that exists in Hunt Cliff, and that they're going to ultimately form a separate HOA within, independent from of the current Hunt Cliff.
That was part of our
That's the-
discussion last Friday.
That's the gist of this. What's different?
As I said, there was lots of input to it, and so I don't know what
So
Clark
nothing
came up.
materially different than this. Then you're going to build to the HOA standard, and they're going to establish their own HOA, I think, is probably.
I think that when you receive the actual letter, it's better for that letter to come from our attorney and speak for itself than me to try to explain something that might be wrong.
That should have as Ms. Peterson said, it should have happened before today, ideally. All right. Do we have?
When we left the meeting on Friday with the lawyers and our HOA, The applicant's lawyer was to draft something on Monday morning. It didn't happen. So we asked our lawyer to do something so that you at least got a response.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Director Grieve, I asked earlier the number of units that were approved. In the 1980-81 plan, it looks like 20.
I'm sorry, pardon?
The number of units that are allowed right now by right. The RS1 CD, is it 20 units on this piece of property?
Yeah, when the Pascals acquired this property, we did have discussions about what the current conditional zoning district would allow, and that diagram is shown right here. So it's 8 units on the south side, but they would have to donate 1.2 acres on the north side to Sandhurst Park, because that was when it finally was zoned back in 2011. The applicants towards the end of the hearing submitted a document, and we actually put it in the file because we found it in the file. We thought it was kind of interesting. Was this CUO 311 wish to amend application to include and request donate to park, and there was signed by Warren Dabbs. And so this was to donate this to put 8 units down here, and that's what the current zoning, conditional zoning district would allow.
All right, so it's 8 units on the south part.
On the south part, 2.89 acres.
Okay. Which deed restrictions probably did not allow, and that's why it never happened. Okay. Okay, thank you. Council, do you have other questions? Is someone,
I'm prepared to make a motion.
okay, if you'd like to make a motion.
I move that after reviewing,
Thank you. All right, I will close the public hearing. Now, if you'd like to make a motion.
I move that after reviewing the proposed map amendments to the Town of Southern Pines zoning map, and after considering the criteria for approval of map amendments found in UDO Section 2.17.9, the proposed amendment to the Town of Southern Pines zoning map is reasonable in the public interest and consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan for the reasons set forth in the April 8, 2025 staff report and contained in the planning board recommendation.
Is there a second? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
And therefore, I move to approve.
Before you say this, are we adding the condition of putting up a sign in the walkway, or no?
It would be on this one, right?
Yeah, that was suggested. That's a good idea. We could,
On this one,
Is this
right?
motion? Yeah, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that if you read it, you include that. Okay. Go ahead.
And therefore, I move to approve Z-01-25 with the,
D-07-24.
25 instead of 24. Brandon?
24. Just make sure we're looking at the same thing.
It says 24, approved Z-07.
I read the entire
Okay,
thing wrong.
okay. Go again. How can I help?
Let me go back and find it. Hang on.
Okay,
Actually, let me just hold that.
okay, there you go.
Oh, this is the agenda. I wanted the words.
Okay, I can get you those too. Thank you. Go get 'em. Here you go.
All right, I'm going to start over. I move that after reviewing, oh, it's the same. It's the same, it's just the
Different?
second part.
Yeah.
And therefore, I move to approve Z-07-24 with the 29 conditions of approval set forth voluntarily by the applicant in the narrative that is attached to the April 8th, 2025 staff report. These 29 conditions in the site plan shall be further set forth as attachments to the rezoning ordinance, plus one additional condition, which is the private property no trespassing sign that the applicant has voluntarily agreed to in this meeting today.
Second that motion.
Saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, phone fell out of there. Oh, I don't know. Okay. Thank you. Probably yes. Do you want to take a break, or are you okay continuing? Yeah, we're going to take a 5-minute break, add a couple minutes, at least 7:35 when we reconvene. All right, thank you for your patience, everyone. We're going to try to get back to the meeting. If my counsel would sit.
So where did Karen go? She had something to say that wasn't.
I don't know, I'm confused about that. Okay, moving on to the second legislative public hearing. We have Z-01-25, conditional zoning district for Meet on May commercial co-working space. If we have a staff member who can present to get us started, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Evening, Madam Mayor, Council, and everyone else of this fine community. Mason Maddox, Planner 2. I will be going through the final 2 conditional zoning applications this evening. Z0125, nicknamed Meet on May. It is a proposal to rezone for the allowance of a commercial co-working space in what is currently the Cottages on May Clubhouse. It's located not far from May Street Bicycle Shop, for your orientation. All right. The proposal is to rezone to Neighborhood Business Conditional Zoning District. It's currently RS1. Office spaces of this nature are not permitted by right within RS1, hence the rezoning. This is a zoning map showing the adjacent predominantly residential zoning. I'll note that business does exist across the street in the red area. This is the existing structure, the clubhouse for Cottages on May that would be used as a part of this application. Meet on May being in this right side of the building. I did include some interior photos just to understand the scope of this project. I'll note that 4 reserved parking spaces do exist adjacent to the building. They are exclusive for 220 Springwood Way, meaning they are only for that building. This is facing down Springwood Way. And if you look at the street on the left at that intersection, that's Ridge. That's looking down that street. Staff has identified areas around the clubhouse that are currently open for on-street parking. It's going to be important for this application in a moment. By no means a comprehensive list, just some that I noticed from driving around that area. I want to note that some discussions have been ongoing with the fire department about this. I have been in close contact with Ken Skipper, the fire marshal, for many weeks regarding this project. None of those issues I would say that none of those issues impact the zoning. But I do want to note that they are there. I'm happy to go into some more detail as to what that entails. A bit of a permitting issue.
But it's something that the fire marshal will handle, or you will handle with the fire marshal?
Yes, it's something that the fire marshal is actively working on with the applicants.
Okay, perfect. I don't think we need detail. I think that he knows how to do his job.
Absolutely, absolutely. And ultimately, we'll have to sign off on it before a certificate of occupancy is granted in the first place, so. All right, for everyone's benefit, this is the proposed list of conditions that the applicant is proposing. The applicant has included. I'll note the provision for on-street parking. It is a constrained site. No parking for it currently exists on site, so everything would have to be on street. All right. That's all that staff has. Do you have questions?
This is located in the clubhouse property, right?
Correct.
So was it ever residential? I mean, I know it's zoned residential, but was it ever used as a residential property?
To my knowledge, looking at previous structures on the site, no.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have questions?
Not yet.
Mr. Goodman?
I guess the question I have is, could this have been considered incidental to the primary zoning?
No, because this would be open to the general public. The clubhouse is only able to be used by members of May Street Cottages. The proposed office space while public, would also be under membership only. So not anyone could go in there. You'd have to be a member, but that's still considered public for zoning purposes. I should have also noted that I do have representatives of Meet on May here tonight, as well as the Homeowners Association president, to answer questions.
Brandon, just to expand on that question just a touch. When this first came to our attention, the nature of this is essentially a very, very small WeWork. It's commercial co-working space. And so, yeah, that was the point at which, if it was office space in the clubhouse available for residents of the subdivision to use, like a subdivision WeWork, that would probably be customarily accessory to the nature of a clubhouse. It's because it's available for subscription-based access to the general public, like any other WeWork, that it was like, that's a commercial co-working space that is different.
Thank you.
Think of it as a clubhouse that might have a gym facility for the neighborhood, and somebody comes in and opens up a mini Gold's Gym or something that anybody can come up and utilize.
I noted in the staff report, but I will reiterate that approximately half of the building would still remain clubhouse for the HOA, and the other half is what would be rented, so not the entire building.
Okay. Are there other questions for staff? If the applicant would like to come speak, that'd be great.
Applicants available for questions.
Okay.
And that's
If you'll just
Hello.
introduce yourself as well.
I'm Skylar Crowder. Do I need to say my address?
I don't think so.
Okay, great. I am a member of Meet on May. I'm here to answer any questions you guys have.
So just, how many people at a time use it? Is it sort of flow enough that it's a few people, but not all of you at the same time? And how does that work?
Would you like to introduce your other speaker?
Sorry. This is Houston Crowder, and I told him it was going to be a quick session and to learn about town council history. So thank you for having him. We have 11 members. We did an average of occupancy while we were open, and max was 2 people at a time. So this is not something that people are flocking to and taking up all the street space. Something that we pointed out in the last town council meeting was that the other side of the clubhouse can be used for rentals for birthday parties, and their max occupancy is 30. So they're utilizing the street as well.
What is your maximum occupancy?
Tentatively, it is 15.
Okay.
Final, it'll be final next week with fire.
Okay.
I know this question's totally out of bounds, but if you don't want to answer, you don't have to. Any revenues from it? Is it the HOA that is gaining the profit from whatever this is obtaining?
I would love for the HOA to speak on that. We have a very good relationship with them and are working together, and they're here today that they can.
Our filter and decision is do we allow it or not? What's actually going on, it's not my business. But
I don't know the
just
answer to
was
that
trying to figure
question.
out a little bit about the structure, so thank you.
Answer that question. I know that we are paying them and we're running the facility from them.
So Meet on May currently exists?
Yes.
Okay. And and you're not currently operating
We are not
now
currently.
because of this process?
Yes.
And maybe this is a question to staff, is this a result of a complaint?
This is the result of a zoning violation that we did a cease and desist, like, hey, you're a commercial co-working space in a residential zone. This is a commercial use in a residential zone, just has to stop in December. So then when they came in and said, okay, well, what can we do? The discussion turned towards Blake Webb was involved, and there was discussions about what could occur. And because of the location and because of the context of the area, and because you appeared to have, when I say location and context of the area, the zoning map on this is not just surrounded by all residential land uses. You're there near May Street, you have a variety of other land uses. You look at the map over here. And so after looking at the comprehensive plan and the applicants at that time, who was it with whom we were interacting at that time? It was Amitha Swaby.
Yes.
Correct. And was there anyone else?
Predominantly heard. It's
Okay.
representatives of Meet on May.
So representatives of Meet on May, and we were visiting with them, and they did look at the comp plan, they did look at what their options would be, and when they came back and said, what about rezoning it? We looked at it as a feasible application, because again, of the area and what the comp plan says. In the end, I think, regardless of what the use is now, they're obviously looking to grow, you wouldn't want to judge Chick-fil-A on a slow night. You know, once this land use is approved, you know, they want to grow it and they want to fill it up because the subscriptions are revenue for the owners of Mead on May. And our understanding is they have an agreement where using this space, they do give some of their operations revenue to the HOA. So there's a symbiotic relationship, but no, our understanding is the HOA does not own Mead on May. That's correct. The HOA does not own Mead on May. Right, so Mead on May is a business that is running in the HOA's clubhouse.
So the zoning violation was a result of a complaint?
No, it came to our attention because it was in the newspaper that they're running a commercial co-working space.
Okay.
It was in the newspaper, it said commercial co-working space, and everyone who saw it went,
What I'm trying to get at here is, so it wasn't a complaint derived from a residence in the community?
that's correct. It came to our attention because it was in the newspaper, and when we have something like that and it comes to our attention, we have to look into it because it just clearly it was a residential zone, and the newspaper and the website advertising the use were all very commercial in nature, and it was like, okay, this has to be resolved. So it started off as a zoning violation, and then it pivoted to, could the zoning be amended? And quite frankly, if it were the before times, before we had conditional zoning, it might have been a tougher fit, because you'd say, well, can we take this property right in the middle of this residential subdivision and make it general business? And now that comes with anything else that's allowed in general business. But the fact it was conditional zoning allows them to come in and just do, one zone with one use.
How long has this been functioning as a co-working space?
A month, 2 months, maybe?
Before the December shutdown? Okay. What was it formerly?
Shut down.
So formerly, the building was the realtor office for the establishment.
Okay.
And we went to look at it, and the individuals who manage it, we didn't know that this was not zoned since a business was in there before.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you.
It was a real estate office for sale of the May Street Cottages lots.
That's what
Yeah,
she said.
That's customarily accessory. It wasn't a real estate office for just general real estate sales of anywhere. For
Yeah, I
anything.
think it received some upgrades and things, but this was a structure that was already on the property when Travis Green came in and rezoned to do May Street on Cottages on May. So they utilized it from the beginning as sort of the sales office for the homes and things, and then it was to convert over to the clubhouse property. Sorry.
The property, but it's irrelevant.
I know there was a structure on the site. They may have actually replaced that. They demoed a structure, yeah. I just remember as part of the original zoning that was
It
a,
really is irrelevant, though. Yeah, it's,
If I may, it is all part of the story, because again, when we noticed it, we looked at what's the history of this area, what was the purpose of this use, what did the May Street Cottages original entitlement say this was going to be, and it's clearly shown on the plat that this is the subdivision clubhouse. And so leasing that space, whether it's to commercial co-working or leasing it to a bicycle shop or leasing it to anybody, that's just not consistent with the subdivision clubhouse. But again, there's an alternative here with the conditional zoning district, and this appears to be amenable, and it works for the HOA and works under the comp plan according to staff's analysis, so that's why we're here tonight.
If you guys are okay, why don't we have the HOA representative come speak? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lindsey Bryceland. I'm the president of the HOA. Thank you. What are your questions?
We just want to know if you all are comfortable. I think you stated it in the planning board meeting, but do you have any concerns with the Meet on May functioning in the clubhouse? And I think Mr. Pate had a question about, and I don't even know if the question needs to be answered, but a financial relationship.
It was brought to the community ahead of Meet on May, when the real estate office was in there, and it was supported by the community to utilize this space. The building was built by the builder, poor design with no foresight for the community to use it, because it's a separate entity within the building. So access for the community to use it, there's no overwatch. It sits vacant, and a vacant space has problems with time. So it benefits the community in the fact that it helps offset some of the HOA expenses. There's a pool adjacent to Meet on May that we have to pay to run. And that rental of that spot can help offset that expense for the community. We have 54 homes. So a lot of park leg setting parcels of land that are expensive to take care of. So it gives us an opportunity, and it doesn't interfere with anybody. If you look at the location on the plat map, it's on the edge of our development. So it doesn't interfere really with our community. It's at the entrance of our community. And it actually provides overwatch with people using the community through the day.
I mean, I actually like the mixed use feel of it, but
It's supported by what our comp plan speaks to as well.
does the council have questions for?
I'm prepared to make a motion if you want to
Okay.
move in.
Okay, I think,
You're going to say,
I was going to suggest that any conversation
public
about
hearing?
their financial deal be done outside the public hearing.
okay, thank you. All right, if you all don't have any other questions, or is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? I'm sorry if there is, I almost jumped over it. I'm sorry, I'm like staring you guys down, I don't mean to. All right. All right, without any public here, are you all okay with me closing the public hearing? All right, I will close the public hearing. Why don't we go ahead, do you want to make the statement now or after a motion?
No, I'll do it now, and then you can make a motion, it's fine. I'll just say I'm thankful for conditional zoning. If without it, I would not be in favor of this, and it's not what you guys are doing. It's really awesome. I think it's a neat thing that y'all have got in place. Thankfully, with the conditional zoning, we can look at the unique nature of that, it's near a GB, and allow for this. I don't want this to be the, I don't feel really great about dropping commercial businesses into RS1s. I don't want us to make a habit of it. But fortunately for this specific spot and the ask, the conditional zoning allows for it. And so I'm glad y'all would be able to do this with this. But I just, as a word of caution, I want to be careful and not just say, hey, we're open business for commercial in the middle of RS1, because I'm not, it's not what I'm trying to imply by this vote, whichever way it may go.
Yeah, I think that's a good statement. In addition, one of the comments on our last hearing mentioned all the conditions. And I think the conditions on that hearing and on this one kind of lead you to think that, well, at least led that one person, the one speaker, Mr. Meadows, to think that it didn't fit in, when in fact, the conditional zoning is exactly what we want, is all these
Exactly.
conditions to make sure that it fits on the property and is complementary.
A bad thing to have conditions.
Yeah, the conditions are good and help us narrow down what it is. All right, are there other comments? Are you ready for a motion? Okay, motion is good.
I move that after reviewing the proposed map amendments, i.e. zoning to the Town of Southern Pines zoning map, and after consideration, is that the right one? Yeah, okay. After considering the criteria for approval of map amendments found in UDO section 2.17.9, that the proposed amendment to the Town of Southern Pines zoning map is reasonable in the public interest and consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan for reasons set forth in this April 8th, 2025 staff report and contained in the planning board recommendation.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And therefore, I move to approve Z-01-25 with the 4 conditions of approval as set forth voluntarily by the applicant on the Neighborhood Business Conditional Zoning District. The 4 conditions shall be further set forth as attached to the rezoning ordinance.
Second.
Favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The application has been approved. Sky, Houston, thank you so much for coming to speak. I hope it was a good civics lesson. Thank you for being here. Okay. Our third and last public hearing is Z-02-25, the conditional zone, another conditional zoning district for, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, Verto Kids?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Verto Kids, I think I said it wrong earlier. Commercial daycare. Welcome back, Mr. Maddox.
Much like our previous public hearing, this is also for an adaptive reuse of an existing space
Can
without.
I pause and tell you that within the last week, I've heard someone who you worked with give a very complimentary, I don't know, comment about your professionalism and your helpfulness. So just wanted you to hear that now in front of a public meeting. And now you can continue.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, please make me cry after the public hearing. Thank you. All right, this is a request to rezone from central business to central business but conditional zoning district. For everyone's awareness, the proposal is to have a child daycare downtown. This use is only permitted by either special use permit or conditional zoning district. In central business, there we have it, conditional zoning. This would be in the former Southern Pines Escape Room, for everyone's familiarity. That is 11 Camellia Way. This is the front of the building. It contains the Country Bookshop and Rhodes & Co. Real Estate, just for some reference. That little alley on the right leads into it. Zoning map, no surprise there. It's in the heart of our central business district, therefore central business zoning. Staff provided the photo that you see on the left. The applicants provided the photo on the right. While not relevant to the zoning in itself, I want to note that an application is pending to add a door to the building that will be heard in 2 days before the Historic District Commission. This is in the town's local historic district, just worth your knowledge. Our UDO contains supplementary standards for child daycare centers. In Chapter 5.7, I highlighted the ones that are applicable. Don't worry, the next page has them without the highlight. That would be these three. Based on zoning requirements, 1 child is permitted for every 35 square feet. We were given a number 642 square feet. That means that the maximum amount of children permitted under zoning would be 18 at any given time. That does not include adults, which would be handled separately under fire codes. I'll note criteria D that states that pickup and drop-off should be provided. I'll note that at no point in that statement in our UDO is there a requirement for automotive pickup and drop-off. So our applicants have creatively proposed escorting people into the building. This is the operational plan submitted. The red dots assumedly representing children and people queuing. Alternative means of satisfying pickup and drop-off. I have the proposed list of conditions before you for everyone's reference. The rezoning would apply to the entire parcel, which would include by extension the businesses that are currently Rhodes & Co. and the Country Bookshop, et cetera. However, the conditions themselves would not apply to those businesses. We thought this was a interesting way to address that with the first condition, only applying the zoning to the address that is 11 Camellia Way. The space would be shared with what is process cycling, both of which exist in 11 Camellia Way or would exist. So that is why the other land use has been listed here. Questions for staff? I'll note that the applicants, Mr. and Mrs. George, are present right here for questions.
If I can make one more additional staff comment, I just wanted to add, one of the reasons why this particular conditional zoning district doesn't involve much detail about the exterior, in order to maintain consistency with the character of the area, is because it is in the historic district. So those things are really pretty well controlled under other provisions and other requirements. So for example, the addition of the door has to get a certificate of appropriateness. So that's one reason why a use like this, you may remember daycares were added to virtually all zones as conditional zoning in order to have this quick review to make sure that historically the things care about the things people care about, neighbors care about when it comes to daycare, things that always come up like noise and playgrounds and things like that. We still, this one's different because we have that historic district control over those issues. So, thank you.
Thank you. You'll have other questions for staff?
So I do have a question. The conditional district or conditional zoning district is just for this 600 square feet of that building?
It is for this approximate 600 square foot portion of the building. And it would also include, if you look on the screen, the area on the left, the larger room, which will be occupied by process cycling.
Okay.
You satisfied with that answer?
I'm sorry.
You good with that answer?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, if the applicant would like to come either make a comment, presentation, or just be available for questions, that'd be great. Thank you for your patience getting through our meeting.
Of course. I was nervous at first, but I'm not anymore.
Perfect.
But my name is Abby George. I actually own Sandhills Nanny Co. as well, so I know there's a very huge demand for this. So I'm super excited and obviously available for questions.
Do you all have any specific questions? I don't think we have any. So that means that you all have done a really good job preparing everything for this meeting. Thank you.
Mason.
I know, right? Are you guys, as it is a public hearing, you can sit down, it's okay. I'm just going to ask if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask if there's discussion or if anyone would like to make a motion.
Well, Madam Mayor, Council, I move that after reviewing the proposed map amendments to the Town of Southern Pines zoning map and after considering the criteria for approval of map amendments found in UDO 2.17.9, that the proposed amendment to the Town of Southern Pines zoning map is reasonable, in the public interest, and consistent with 2040 comprehensive plan for reasons set forth in the April 8th, 2025 staff report and contained in the planning board recommendations.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Therefore, I move to approve Z-02-25 with the conditions of approval as set forth voluntarily by the applicant on the Central Business Conditional Zoning District. The conditions shall be further set forth as attachments to the rezoning ordinance.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. Your application has been approved. Yeah, of course. Is it related to this? Oh, something else, okay. Yes, we have no action items, and so we have, Mr. Pate would like to make a comment for the good of the public.
Yes, and I meant to do this earlier. I apologize I didn't do it with the whole room full. It got glazed over. We did a resolution for Library Week, and it just sort of went quick. And I hated to say, Amanda Brown and that whole staff over there are phenomenal. They do excellent work. It is a great use of our taxpayer dollars and a benefit to Southern Pines. So we did it for the consent agenda, recognizing Library
glad you
Week,
did.
but I felt it appropriate to specifically give them kudos because they do a great job.
They're an incredible asset to our town and citizens, so thank you guys for putting that resolution together.
I shared with them that y'all were doing this evening, and unfortunately, they weren't able to attend.
That's okay. Can I take it to them tomorrow?
They were very excited and very appreciative of
No?
us listening to them. Thank you
Okay. Okay.
for honoring that week.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We'll talk about how it gets delivered. Okay. All right, unless there's anything else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 8:05.
Past the bell, but you're getting there.
Yeah, I'm trying, Brandon.
Bill beat you by a full 60 minutes.
Hey, Reagan, I'm going to need a moment.